Back on MorningLine. Thanks for joining us on this Wednesday, talking about the issue of DACA, the deferred action for childhood arrivals, rescinded yesterday by the president, and they're on the clock now about what happens next. With us this morning to talk about it, two folks that were disappointed in the president's decision. We're going to be doing a show with those who support it as well. But this morning, Renata Soto's with us, along with Elliot Osment. Thanks both for coming on. Let's take a couple of phone calls, and then we'll get into more details. We'll go to Peter. Good morning, Peter.
Good morning, Nick.
Hi, Peter.
Yeah, I'd like to just inject, instead of throwing words around like propaganda, inject who actually makes the laws in the United States. It's not the president. President Obama issued a memo. It wasn't even an executive order directing what immigration was to do. You know, the legislature passes laws. The president enforces those laws, and the judiciary will interpret those laws. You know, we had an amnesty program once before under Ronald Reagan. A lot of people seem to forget that. Okay, the design of that was to close the border security. Nothing yet, that never occurred, and we ended up with 11 million after that. You know what I think we could, I'm for letting these people stay too. They've been here. You know, we don't have any idea when all of them got here. You know, I don't know. We don't have birth certificates and all that. But anyway, they've been here. This is their country. I don't have a problem with that. What I have a problem with is that it encourages further illegal immigration. We end up with another 11 million. You know, our country, we're a country of rules and laws. And I want to see the laws enforced in this country, and not by executive order. You know, let's let the legislature decide. Legitimately, this should be decided by Congress, not by the president. He was exactly right in nullifying that memo. Okay, the Democrats need to get on board because they're always opposing border security, e-verification, and a new immigration law. I think it needs to be modernized. What we need to do is bring people into this country that have skills that we need, not low-skilled workers to compete with Americans. You know, let's talk about the American dreamers a little too.
Okay, all right. Yeah, and that seems to be what's happened here. Is the president now has rescinded it, and it's going to Congress. And I think the president has said he wants to see, you know, a widespread overhaul of immigration policy, which, if you've looked at what's happened lately in D.C., I just don't see that happening where there's going to be any agreement. And then the question is, then, do they just pass something specifically dealing with the Dreamers? And there's no guarantee the president, if that's the case, would sign that.
Well, let me say to Peter that he and I agree on some things here.
Yeah, okay.
I agree that there ought to be comprehensive immigration reform. And I agree that the people that have been here for many years deserve a right to stay. Mm-hmm. So I agree with Peter on both of those points. The question is, did Obama have the authority to issue the executive order that he did? Now, presidents have authority to issue executive orders.
Well, we've seen President Trump issue a bunch of executive orders. I mean, that is a power they have.
And Obama was very reluctant to do this at first, but then he studied the presidents of both Ronald Reagan and George H.W. Bush, both of whom signed deferred action executive orders for certain immigrants, and so he simply followed their pattern. But of course, that's history. Mm-hmm. That's all behind us now. The program has now ended, and what we have to do is look forward. And I would encourage Peter to contact his congressmen and his senators and encourage them to do what he said should be done, and that is support a law that makes it possible for these dreamers to stay here legally and, if possible, pass comprehensive immigration reform.
What do you think comprehensive immigration reform should look like?
Yeah, before I answer that, I want to say that to Peter too, and a lot of Tennesseans, you know, one thing that we should remember as encouragement are both of our senators voted for a bipartisan immigration reform bill a couple of years ago, and actually they were key votes. Only one of the states from the South with 2 senators in the Republican Party who voted for it. And so I think that one of the most important things that we can do now, and either we're disappointed because of the use of executive orders or because we are disappointed that DACA recipients are sent into the shadows, is to contact our 2 senators, because they really are the ones that can lead the way in bringing that conversation back to Congress, where truly is the only place where we can change once and for all immigration laws. A comprehensive immigration reform bill needs to have common sense and recognize that our people like dreamers who have been here for almost all of their lives, and their parents, people who are being part of our economy, even if we don't want to recognize them, right? People who, thanks to them, our agricultural system makes us eat fresh vegetables every day, right? Like there's so many dimensions of our lives where undocumented immigrants are really benefiting each of us in ways that we don't know it. So we have to recognize that they're here, that they are paying taxes, and they're part of our communities. And we also have to recognize that our immigration system is not one that really upholds the family values that we talk about. And so in this case, I'm not talking only about undocumented immigrants who are here, but also families who are trying to reunite. When you are, and you can talk about the cases, right? When you have someone, a spouse, that is trying to bring another spouse from another country, that process is long, and sometimes the timelines are not rational for a family to be separated.
So you're not advocating just to open the borders, let everyone just come through, anyone who wants to, willy-nilly?
No, I think that every nation has the right and should make sure that you are taking care of the safety and the interest of your country. But I think that it is a impractical position to believe that we are not going to continue to have flow of people moving from one place to another because of economic reasons, because of political reasons, because of social issues. We have to recognize that a country will continue to move forward as long as we also allow that movement of people, just like we allow moving of capital and intellect. It is part of what moves our economies and our societies. And so, of course, we have to put parameters to that. But that means that we also have to recognize that for many years, economies like the US and Mexico and Central America are so intertwined and so interlinked, and we have not updated our immigration systems to recognize that. While we need those workers, we have not allowed our immigration system to make sure that those workers have a path to come here. So we need agricultural workers.
Yeah, I mean,
and we need other kinds of workers, not just high-tech workers.
Okay, and do you believe that one other thing the caller mentioned is he felt that DACA in some ways sent the message that it's okay, come on over, and opened it and encouraged, even though I know you made the point that the law itself of DACA had limits, okay, and it had a time set on it, but just the image of, well, there's DACA, and they were allowed, so we'll just go over there, and that'll happen for us maybe down the road.
Well, if that happened, and those people came after June the 15th, 2007, and they went to any immigration law office, they got some bad news. And the bad news was, sorry, you don't qualify for DACA, you cannot apply for DACA, and you're out of luck.
Okay.
Well, so that is the message that they should have gotten before they came up here. Now, what message they got, who knows, but that's the law.
The other thing is that it is factual that the crossings from Mexico to the U.S. have declined tremendously since the recession. And we are not on par to the levels of immigrants coming into the U.S. before the years of the recession. And that has to do with a lot of things, both, well, the economy, it took a while in the U.S. to
there weren't as many jobs,
but also the economy in Mexico, believe it or not, has improved. And so there are more reasons for people to stay. They're still coming, but Mexicans and others are not coming. Actually, there's a net result. As many people are coming, many people are going back. And that is one of the ways in which we have to remember that immigration is really a self-selective process and self-regulating for economic immigrants. When there are jobs, and there are scarcity of jobs where you're coming from, but when the situation changes and the economy in your community changes, people prefer to stay where they are. coming here and leaving everything you know behind, your language, your family, is something that you do once that you have exhausted all of your options where you are. So by the time you come here is because there's nothing else and no hope where you are. And when people can go back, or when people can choose to stay because they feel that there might be some hope in their community, that's what people mostly do.
Let's go to Grady. Hi, Grady.
Good morning, Dick. You know, to me, it's immoral for these people to bring their children in this country. Who did they live with? Did they just bring them and drop them off? Did they stay here and raise them? We're talking about almost 1 million people. There's people standing in line trying to do it legally in Mexico to get here. These 800,000 to 1 million, you know, they're here without documentation. That's illegal. I'll hang up with your comments this morning.
Okay, and for a lot of people, you know, on its surface, Grady just encapsulated what many folks here in Tennessee, I think, believe and think. I mean, that's it right there.
I don't often quote Bible verses in the law because I believe in the separation of church and state. But I'm going to read Grady something out of the book of Ezekiel. And I want him to look it up after I've cited it to him.
Okay.
Ezekiel 18:20 says, "The son will not share the guilt of the father, nor will the father share the guilt of the son. The righteousness of the righteous man will be credited to him, and the wickedness of the wicked will be charged against him." These young children were brought up here through no action of their own. They were brought up here by their parents. In almost all the cases, the parents raised them up here. They went to our schools. They pledged allegiance to our flag. They played with our children in school. They played sports. Many of them excelled in sports. They've gone to our schools. They've gone to our colleges. There's one DACA student that I know personally that has now started her first year at Vanderbilt Medical School on a scholarship.
And so under this, she could be sent packing.
Absolutely. And so is this how we want to treat these young people? Is this what America stands for? Have we gone that far astray? So I would encourage Grady to get his Bible out and read Ezekiel 18:20 and think about that.
Let's take a break on that note. When we come back, more of our conversation and more of your calls right after this.